1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where two moms review the best and worst in children's programming. From Netflix reboots and YouTube shorts to Disney classics and Pixar blockbusters. We watch, you listen. Find out what you can tolerate watching for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Katie.
I have 3 kids. Tony is 10, and Libby and Nate are almost 7.
And I have 2 kids. Jay is 4 and Kenny is about 1.5. Our kids are pretty adorable, aren't they?
They are.
This is the part in the episode where we both tell a quick story about how awesome or occasionally awful our kids are, because in addition to being witty and incisive pop culture consumers, we're moms too. Deborah, what have your kids done this week that was particularly cute?
So this story reflects both poorly on me and well on me, I think. We went to see Frozen 2 because it's holiday movie season. And before we went to the movie, I tried to encourage my kids to take some of their Halloween candy and stuff it in their pockets so they could eat it in the movie theater, because I didn't want to shell out big dollars for rip-off movie theater treats. And they refused because it was against the rules.
Such goody two-shoes you're raising.
They are rule followers, which is, I feel like I am doing a good job, but also they don't know how to stick it to the man yet, I guess.
Yeah. Talk about a reward that's not a reward. Like, way to raise good kids. Now shell out $10 for Sour Patch Kids. This story kind of makes me feel insane, but I swear Kenny said Jay's name for the first time. And I was super excited, and I told everyone about it, and he has not done it since. So I worry I might be losing my mind, but I also am super excited about the way that Kenny's vocabulary is growing.
Oh, I love it when babies start talking or start talking a lot more. That's exciting.
Yeah. I feel like every day we're getting just something new that actually makes sense, which is fun.
Awesome.
So moving on to our screen time in the news segment, we read an article from the New York Times that ranked Netflix's 5, they technically have 6, but when the article was published, the 6th wasn't out. So they ranked Netflix's holiday movies. The article is from November 27th, and it's by Elizabeth Vincentelli. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. She ranked Netflix's 5 holiday movies in this order. The number 1 was Let It Snow, which neither of us have seen, but is based on some stories by John Green, beloved thanks to his wonderful YouTube channel, Crash Course, of course. Listeners, that's not true. He's beloved for writing a lot of very excellent YA fiction. And it also has Kiernan Shipka in it from Mad Men, who I feel like I owe because I do not watch her series, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Do you watch it?
No, I haven't seen it.
All right, so this one looks good. It's rated number 1. It's on both of our lists.
It must be good if it's ranked better than Klaus.
I know, because spoiler alert, the number 2 on this list is Klaus, which, it just so happens, is our topic for the day. And Klaus is an animated film all about the origins of Santa Claus. We'll get more into the plot later. The point is, excellent, and it's hard to imagine what could be excellenter. Number 3, Holiday in the Wild, which on the surface looks like it's going to be a pretty standard holiday rom-com, but it stars Kristen Davis and Rob Lowe, which is pretty intriguing.
Have you seen how Rob Lowe's kids troll him on Instagram?
I have not, but I am here for it. I love self-aware celebrities, even though I know they're just doing it for me.
I hope he posts about this movie because it looks really good, and I love Kristen Davis. And then I hope to see how his kids troll his post on Instagram.
Okay, so far we're 3 for 3 on movies that we're interested in, even though we've only seen one. The 4th is Holiday Rush, And again, it looks like kind of your standard Christmas rom-com. Takes place in a radio station. Its hook is that it's got a non-white lead, which we applaud. Doesn't sound great though.
The New York Times didn't really like it.
And then the last on the list is the Vanessa Hudgens vehicle, The Knight Before Christmas. Listeners, I know it is not pronounced Knight, but I am just trying to let you know that the title is a pun on The Night Before Christmas. But it is starring a knight who comes forward in time to fall in love with Vanessa Hudgens for the holidays. This looks really bad. Even though I love Renaissance fairs, I am still not interested in this.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. Netflix's 5 original holiday movies ranked. Listeners, have you seen any of these? Do you agree or disagree with Miss Vincentelli's verdicts? Let us know. And with that,
we can move on to our follow-up and general news. Big news in streaming. Disney Plus is out, and Katie, you got it. Tell us all about it.
I know you guys are probably peeved that we're not immediately reviewing something on Disney Plus because it's definitely been the big news in kids-related streaming content, and we didn't want to leave you hanging. So I've spent some time on it. My overall reaction is a resounding meh because they don't have a ton of original content. Their big push is for this original Star Wars show, which is not for kids. It's called The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've heard of it. It stars an adorable Baby Yoda.
I've heard only about Baby Yoda. That's all I've heard about Disney Plus, I feel like.
So the vast majority of other content is just back catalog stuff. I don't know if you did this with your kids, but we were pretty quick to introduce Jay to the animated classics that we loved growing up, like Aladdin, The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid. So we already had those. I wasn't really chomping at the bit for access to any of these other vault properties, nor do I have a huge sense of nostalgia for like the early 90s television movies that they seem to be pushing so hard. I don't know. I look forward to seeing what they will do in the future. To me, it's not there yet, which is weird.
Fair enough.
You hear about adults like losing entire days just like sitting in front of Disney Plus. I just don't see it, guys.
Maybe they don't have a 1.5-year-old.
Yeah, that's true.
Keeping them on their toes.
Listeners, tell us what you're watching on Disney Plus. Prove me wrong. I would love for it to be better than I think it is.
So also new out since our last episode is Frozen 2, which I mentioned that I took my kid to, and I loved it. If you're going to see a holiday movie in the theater, I think you should see Frozen 2. It's a great continuation of the story. The animation was stunning. The songs were really good, although not quite as catchy as Let It Go. I really liked the soundtrack.
Isn't it amazing how it's not Pixar. Isn't it amazing how Disney Animation just consistently ups its game?
It is. Like, there's this scene where Elsa conjures up a ice horse and rides it across the ocean, and it's like clearly made out of ice, and then it transitions to like the mane is like ice that's melting, like icicles, and it is like unbelievably beautiful and mind-blowing that they can do that with animation. It's so stunning.
I mean, obviously it's kind of fraught to make a sequel. Like there's a lot to worry about with plot, and you are scared that you're not going to be able to recapture the magic. But you could have just worried about that, and instead they brought it up this other level by still making strides animation-wise. I am so excited to see it.
It was good. So speaking of holidays, we are going to take a little holiday break. We'll release a new episode on January 8th, and so we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Let us know what you're watching. Let us know what you think we should review next.
Yeah, and we'll all be binging all the holiday movies before then, hopefully.
And that brings us to today's topic, Klaus. Released on Netflix November 8th. It's billed as Netflix's first original animated feature made by the animator who started the Despicable Me franchise and then branched out into his own production company. It's got a star-studded voice cast like Jason Schwartzman, Joan Cusack, Rashida Jones, the guy from Whiplash. And it starts out with Jesper. He's like the main character. He's a louseabout rich kid who's never done anything, but his dad threatens to disinherit him unless he does something worthwhile. And the dad sends him to Smearensburg, which is a very remote northerly outpost where everybody in the town is completely miserable. And Jesper is charged with starting up the post office there, and the dad wants him to process 6,000 letters in a year, or else he's going to lose his inheritance. Jesper meets a teacher who also moved there, and none of the kids were going to school, so she started being like a fishmonger in the schoolhouse. It was kind of just like you could smell the rotten fish in those scenes. At least I could. He also meets this guy who lives way far out in the woods who has a stocked workshop filled with toys that he's built for the children he and his wife are never able to have. And he ends up seeing like this sad picture drawn by a kid in Smearensburg. And so he delivers a toy, and then word spreads, and kids realize that if they write a letter to this Claus figure, he will deliver toys. And so it's all about the origin of Santa Claus and explains all these reasons behind our Santa Claus tradition. And it was really good. I loved it.
Obviously, guys, we picked it because it's the holiday season. And if you listened to our holiday episode last year, we were very impressed with Netflix's original Christmas movie, The Christmas Chronicles. So we thought we'd give them another chance. And, I think they did even better this time.
Mm-hmm. It was really good. What did you think about just the general concept?
Well, I think you have to know that I loved this because I love a good origin story, and I also love movies that focus on the process of how things are done. And this did both of those, so I was in it from the beginning. I thought they did a really good job of retelling the Santa origin story while making everything feel relatively organic. A lot of the traditions just, you had that moment of, oh, that's how it happened, but it didn't feel forced. And I loved that about it. Obviously, it's a fantastical concept, but it felt real in a reassuring way. What did you think?
I really liked it. I thought it was fitting for the holidays. It's kind of like a reverse of the Grinch. Like the town is filled with horrible, mean-spirited people. The outsider, he had like disingenuous motivations because he's trying to save his own inheritance, but he turns it around. Like he makes a good on it. He ends up like wanting to be in it to change the town for the better.
Right. And who doesn't love a good redemption arc?
Exactly.
Have you ever seen the classic Christmas movie from, I was going to say from our generation, but I think it's even older than that, Santa Claus is Coming to Town?
Maybe. I don't know.
It's made by the Rankin Bass animators, the same people who did the classic Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So it has that feel to it, kind of the stop-motion animation. And it is also a Santa origin story. So prior to watching this, I would say that was what I considered to be like the Christmas movie canon Santa origin story.
Sure.
About like Kris Kringle as a young man and how he came to be the figure we know today. And as far as I'm concerned, this can replace that in a heartbeat. I found it so much more compelling, so much more emotionally resonant. Yeah, A+. You had a really interesting thought about this movie as a metaphor for how we interact via social media. Do you want to go into that?
I sent that to you in a text right before I went to sleep last night. I mean, these people in the village are terrible. They really try to hurt each other. And like there's this scene where this old lady takes like dirty dishwater out and like throws it onto somebody's clean laundry hanging up in their backyard. And it's like a recurring thing she does. I mean, first of all, stop hanging your laundry up in the backyard so she can do this to you. But they're horrible, and they don't realize that it can be better until the kids start acting nice, and then they like follow the kids' example, and they see that their neighbors are just other people. And it seems like when people are online, they can hide behind like anonymity or because they're not talking face to face. And I don't know, I think that the way people lash out at one another on social media sites, this movie reminded me of that because people were just so vicious.
But I have to say, I don't think that the children are necessarily changing our social media landscape for the better. So
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is we need a social media Klaus to bribe them into being less mean to one another. And then, we can have a flourishing, loving community. The internet can finally fulfill its promise and not be a horrible cesspool.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about the look of the show? I know we were just talking about Frozen and how impressed you were with the strides they'd made in animation. This was a much more sort of traditional, what I think of as like traditional for our computer generated animation age. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was really good. The setting was very Dickensian.
Mm-hmm.
And then the animation, it was sort of Wizard of Oz-esque. Like the color palette was really dreary at first. And then it got a little more colorful as the kids' good behavior started to change the town, which I liked. I like it when the setting ties in with everything else.
Right. As soon as I read that the creator was also behind the Despicable Me franchise, I was like, oh, heck yes, because you can very much see the similarity. The characters are all drawn with those long, spindly legs and like bulkier upper bodies. There's a lot of nose work being done. People have like very prominent hooked noses. Klaus's nose in particular looks like a ski slope. It's like very flat and it turns up on the end. The whole look of the film to me was like, what if Gru's house, but everywhere? Because you know how there's that scene in Despicable Me where it's like a normal suburban street and then you see Gru's house and it has all these like crooked turrets and everything. That was pretty much the aesthetic for all of Smearensburg. So it fit really well with the past work this animator has done. There's a significant amount of talk about the Disney body proportions and how inaccurate they are and how that could potentially be harmful for little girls to see Disney princesses the way they're portrayed. I kind of like how this takes it in the other direction. And like these body proportions are so obviously wrong that no one's going to look at that and be like, well, why don't I have super spindly legs and a ski slope nose? You know, it's not aspirational weirdo proportions. It's just weirdo proportions.
Right.
What did you think about this crazy star-studded cast?
I thought they were really good. I always kind of like Jason Schwartzman, and I don't know what he's been doing lately. He hasn't been on my radar, so I was pleased to see him make an appearance. How about you?
I agree. I had a hard time placing the main voices, mainly because there's a scene fairly early on when Klaus and Jesper like walk together into maybe a workshop and you just see their backs as they're walking, and it reminded me so viscerally of the Disney film Emperor's New Groove, like with the big burly, and I think in that movie it's John Goodman with the tiny spindly David Spade, that like once I had that mental image, I could not get their voices out of my head. And logically I was like, that's not David Spade. But I could almost believe that Klaus was John Goodman. So then when I looked and saw who it actually was, it was like a little bit of a disconnect. But I thought they both acquitted themselves well. There was a great scene in which Jesper made Klaus laugh, and it was kind of the genesis of the ho 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 that we all know. And it was played really well. So no shock that J.K. Simmons is a very good actor. Newsflash, guys. I also love Rashida Jones, as I know you do too.
She is good, and her voice isn't super distinctive. Like, she is, to me at least, she was believable as that teacher.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but she was in another Netflix animated movie that we reviewed, the White Fang adaptation that we hated.
Yeah, and she was the mother. Yes.
So I was like, yes, can we please know you for this voice work instead of that? Because that was horrible.
Right.
Yeah, I was happy to hear all these people. I thought they all did great. Joan Cusack is always a favorite of mine, and she played like the matriarch of one of the feuding families in Smearensburg, and she was great and prickly. Her voice is so distinctive. I love her in everything. Did you have any thoughts about the music?
There was one song, like montage, I thought, for the setting and time period that this movie was supposedly cast in or set in, it was a little poppy.
Yeah.
But it was fine.
I thought it was really trying hard to have some sort of like crossover pop hit out of this song, and it was called Invisible, and it's like, you know, the most important things are invisible, guys. I did not care for it, and it did take me out of the world. I'm a fan of a good song. I love a musical. Like, if you want to have the characters burst out into song about how crappy life in Smearensburg is,
yeah,
I could listen to that all day long.
It was like somebody unrelated to the movie wrote the music, and then they just spliced it in.
Yeah.
So were you able to compare this to any adult movies or TV shows?
Adult movies and TV shows were hard to come up with. I mean, the whole protagonist is a bad guy and then learns over the course of the movie to be a better person. That's a very common trope. But when I found myself thinking about it, it was mostly in movies geared towards kids or families. The one that I thought of most was a favorite of ours, School of Rock.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to really come up with a grown-up movie. How about you?
Have you watched Succession on HBO?
I haven't, but all the hubbub around it has convinced me that I need to. I just need to find the time.
The master of the universe media mogul has these 4 children who are like of varying abilities, and they're always trying to prove themselves to their dad so that they can be named as the successor of his giant company. And so it reminded me of that in a way, like especially Roman. For those of you who have seen it, Jesper was very Roman-esque.
Okay. Well, I look forward to understanding what that means someday.
And if I were to cast the gritty HBO reboot, I would just make like a spin-off of Succession and send Roman to a remote northerly village and have him start a post office, because I think that would be hilarious. And I think Roman is ripe for redemption. He needs it.
Oh, speaking of remote northern villages, can we compare it to another favorite of ours, Men in Trees?
Yes.
So when it came to casting, I was trying to think of like a good super self-serious artist that could come in and play this concept way too seriously. So I thought that I would recast Jesper with Ryan Gosling.
Oh, good.
I thought he would be a good choice. I thought that actual Rashida Jones could do a good job playing her role in person as well, because she could kind of give a deadpan disbelief to exactly how gritty and dark Ryan Gosling was taking this.
Yeah, totally. So was it better when we were kids?
I mean, I already gave my take on the superiority of this to Santa origin story, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. So in that sense, from a process perspective, I liked this a lot more. But it's hard to separate your childhood nostalgia for certain holiday movies. You know, like when it gets your hooks into you that young, it's hard to say something else is better. What did you think?
I liked it a lot. I think there's so much good holiday content. I think it's better now than when we were kids. because of streaming, we can watch all those old movies and the new ones. We just don't have time for everything. That's the only problem. I watched this with my whole family and everybody really liked it, but I am going to go ahead and say I would watch this alone voluntarily.
Yeah, I watched it at the gym on the treadmill. It was great. I was laughing. I was laughing out loud while on the treadmill, possibly putting my life at risk. It was good.
Oh my gosh. Were you running or walking?
I was running at first, but then I eventually just had to start walking because I was worried for my own safety.
Wow, look at you exercising and working on our podcast. That's amazing.
I try to multitask when I can. Should we do 10 seconds on whether this is good for our kids?
Yeah, I think it's great for our kids. I really liked it. My kids are a little bit older. The scenes where Jesper goes into town are frightening because the kids have like these hollowed out zombified eyes and they're doing things like building a snowman with like a howling mouth and like stabbing it with carrots, like carrots sticking out of the body of the snowman. Like knives instead of using a carrot for the nose. So except for like some of the violence between the townspeople, I think it's good.
Jay watched it, and I think it did a great job of crossing age barriers. Like there was a lot of stuff that was enjoyable for older kids like yours, but Jay still followed the story, and he was really enthusiastic about it. Yeah, even for his age, I wouldn't say no. I don't think these are going to shock any of you listeners, but should we move on to ratings?
I would give it a 5.
5 stars for sure. If you are looking for holiday content, this is a great one. I think we may have given Christmas Chronicles a 5 as well, but I would watch this before that.
I would definitely watch this before that. That had that like cheesy fake news line that I think maybe we'll look back, listeners, and we'll figure out what we rated that one.
Yeah, I mean, as always, our standards change. But Netflix, way to go on raising the bar because you did good last year. You did better this year. We can't wait to see what you're going to do next year. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of It's My Screen Time Too. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps other people find the show. You can check out our awesome website at myscreentime2.com. You can also still find us on Facebook to continue the conversation at facebook.com/myscreentime2. That's also where you'll find out what we're covering in our next episode if you want to watch along with us. You can tweet us with show or movie suggestions, article recommendations, or general comments at myscreentime2, or you can email us at myscreentime2@gmail.com. We promise to check that inbox roughly once in a blue moon. Our theme music was composed and performed by Deborah and her adorable children, and our podcast is produced by me, Katie. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV beloved by kids and tolerated by parents. Bye!